98 golf for 7 years, 97 to 2004. That's electronic warfare, signal interceptor, Russian translator thing. Yeah, it's awesome. It's amazing how awesome you can't find jobs as a Russian translator when you get out of the military. Right? So I went to college for 3 years on Seattle, and picked up a secondary skill, which also was not very profitable in journalism. So I was like 0 for 2. Like, nobody really cares about translating Russian, and people care even less about journalism now, right? So I kind of had to figure out my own way and pick up the skills that I have today in order to really kind of go to where I'm at, right? So I think programs like this are actually really awesome, and I wish they had them when I was coming out, because there wasn't a lot. There was basically like, let me talk about what you're doing today and how can I translate that into a very specific role in the civilian workforce, right? And quite frankly, that doesn't work a lot of times, right? It's hard, even with very technical roles, to translate them specifically one-to-one to a civilian role, right? And so you got to get a little creative, and picking up things and looking for points of transition within the broader marketplace are pretty critical, right? And so I think some of the skills that you guys have been going over with the cloud-based software, Chef, like that kind of things, those are the things that are currently in transition within the marketplace right now, which is going to set you apart from other people. So that's really the critical piece. And so a little bit about myself, and kind of telling you that it definitely took me some time, right? But I do want to talk a little bit about Chef. So how many of you guys have actually used Chef so far? Yeah, everybody's gone through it, right? All done it. You guys have spun up a WordPress site, maybe done some other stuff, yeah?
Yeah.
One server, 2 servers, 1 server? Awesome, cool. What'd you guys think? Was it hard?
No. I just got all the right syntax.
Yep.
I didn't know what you're doing and doing the right steps and doing it all in order.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a key thing, right? Like, order is pretty important.
I thought the good thing was that there are so many resources available. Like, if you go to the Chef website, like everything is pretty explained over there. But you just have to have it.
So that's one thing that I think is interesting about people with a military background and our documentation. So people with a technical background find our documentation lacking, right? Because what they want are scenarios and examples. I found that people, like we've all read manuals, right? AR regulations are not scenario dependent. It's like, here are the docs, go figure it out, right? And it's actually amazing how far that our docs are really designed around that. And the guy who writes them has no military background, so it's kind of fascinating. But yeah, there's definitely a bunch of resources on the doc site. There's a lot of community, right? So Chef is an open source product. There wasn't a company around it when it was created. They created the company out of a consulting company to offer online services, right? So there was an online Chef service, right? So you used hosted Chef, and that was it. And that was the business model. It was pretty small, but kept developing the software. And eventually, when you get a certain level of funding, they want you to make more money than an online hosted service can generate. So they came out with the private server product, and then that's really where everything kind of took off. And large enterprises, you will find private enterprises do not like to use public services too much. I would say small to medium-sized corporations are really all in on, I'll just use GitHub, or I'll use some other public cloud service to do all my things. But when you get into larger companies like GE or Southwestern Airlines or Delta or Boeing, places like that, they're gonna no, it needs to be all in-house, right? Because they don't want to have the chance to leak. Retail companies, really big, right? There's almost every single retail company has a massive IT program, and it's almost all in-house because, again, there's regulations and data breaches and things like that. Sorry. Yeah. So anyways, so basically a little more history about Chef. We're born and raised in Seattle. It's definitely a relaxed company, right? This is what I wore to work today. It's what I work every single day. I hate when I have to dress up and put a button-on shirt on. But it's definitely the DevOps space, right? Like, what is DevOps actually, like, what that actually means is very hot in IT right now. And I think a lot of it comes down to people wanting the speed that it brings, and which is realistically what it actually, when you really boil it down to, the speed that they're getting is just from collaboration and teamwork, right? And that's something that in the military you have a lot of, right? Like the camaraderie, the teamwork, ability to work with others is actually pretty huge, right? You go in with a lone wolf type attitude, you're definitely not going to be like wanting to work with a team, wanting to collaborate, wanting to understand both sides of the equation to really get their equations out the door, or what companies are looking for right now. Because at this point, we've reached a period where more hardware and technology is not going to increase their bottom line. It's the faster that they can deliver their product to the customer. And their product is being delivered by the supporting IT infrastructure, right? So that's why cloud is really exploding, because it's really easy to provision systems and deprovision them, and it's cost effective in some cases. That's why automation tools like Chef are also really popular, because it allows you to kind of quickly spin things up. It allows you to kind of recover from disasters, which is a really big thing that a lot of enterprises are worried about. And it's also, I think, why DevOps is actually picking up so much. So, like, who's got a good definition for DevOps?
One more time.
No, he can't answer.
Kind of a marriage of the IT guys and the developers to kind of like a hybrid role, to where you can understand both sides to translate each other.
Close, but you good. Working together. Yeah.
Basically, it's the programmers and the developers working together to really communicate and build out the product correctly, instead of the developers thinking up all these great ideas and then throwing the storyboards over to the programmers and telling them, okay, figure it out.
So it's that little step stool thing you were telling us about?
Waterfall?
Yeah, the waterfall. Yeah, so waterfall. Okay. Waterfall is a development practice. It's a project management practice, and that is a very old school method. And what it does is, and there's a lot of people who still use it today. And it's essentially someone writes the design. It's like a factory design, right? Someone writes the design and they hand it off to the person who is like, I'm going to architect the design, and then I'm going to write the code for the design. Then I'm going to hand it to people to put the design on the computer to do the things, right? And no one actually knows how all of the different components work. That's cool if you're building cars. It's not cool if you're building complex data systems, right? The more that you know about the whole package, the more value and speed you can bring to the stability and delivery of that application. So I heard like a couple of different things here, and I think a lot of times, I think generally everybody is pretty right on in terms of DevOps, right? I think the core point is it's really about collaboration. It's really about working with everybody together on the same team and fighting silos, right? So silos are when it's the developers are developing the application and the operations folks are managing the systems, and they just hand me this thing and I have no say, right? Working in a real, true DevOps environment shouldn't necessarily mean that you have to do both jobs, right? It'll be easier if you understand both jobs, which I think is why a lot of this stuff works. And why I think Jeff kind of picks up a little bit, right? Because it's a programming DSL for managing hardware systems, right? Like it's a really good merge of the two worlds, and I think that's why a lot of companies kind of grab onto that, as opposed to your regular automation tool, which is just like, I know these commands that I do in order, and I will just do that. I'll automate that, right? There's no actual thinking or logic or able to program anything that's like responsive behavior. So, a good example is I have two web servers, and one of them experiences an issue. It just goes down. Like if all I'm doing is automating the creation of my systems, this thing goes down, and my performance suffers, right? When you do something with an automated configuration system like Chef, you're able to do things like, plug it into monitoring systems and say, hey, this thing went down, I should make a new server so that I don't lose capacity. You want to think about things like that, right? Where it helps to kind of know both sides. You don't have to be a developer and an operations focus. You can focus on one or the other. DevOps is really about having more of a collaborative team effort across everybody and being business focused, right? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your role is on a company. The job is to support the business to make money, right? We live in a capitalist society, right? That it doesn't matter like how good you are at information security or network operations, any of that stuff. It doesn't matter if the company is not able to make money. It doesn't matter how good you are at your job. So I think that's another reason why it's kind of picking up. So, I was kind of talking to some of the guys here before. I think that this is actually a pretty decent time to transition out if you're interested in technology spaces, because the entire industry is undergoing a massive transformation. It only started maybe 3 or 4 years ago, right? And the traditional things when you exit out of the military are, how do I compete against somebody who has 10 years of experience with all these different technologies or tools or whatever, when I've been in the military for just as long, but I've been focused on this one specific thing. So I don't have as broad, I have depth in this one thing, and I don't have as broad as a scope. I think the way it is right now, nobody has that depth or broad. And there are people that, I talk to people that have been working with technology for 20 years, and they might as well just be an entry-level person, right? Like some of their experiences matter, but a lot of them, I think it kind of is a really brief window of kind of leveling the playing field within technology right now. That's kind of my kind of outlook in terms of how industries or different companies are going. And I will say, it's cross-industry, right? And if you're looking to get into the space, I would find an area where we're not focused just specifically on technology, focus on an area that you're actually interested in, right? If you like Target, you can go work at Target and work in their IT department. Like any company that you can think of has an IT department that is undergoing this shift right now. And it may not be Chef, it may be another tool, but the fact that you know Chef and you can speak intelligently about it, you actually do and show that I've been able to do this before, it's definitely going to improve your chances a lot. And the other cool thing is all this stuff is open source. So when you walk out of here, you can just keep learning. You can learn on your own, right? The resources available. There are things out there to kind of keep you moving along without having to. With some of the things that are more your traditional enterprise IT application, you have to spend thousands of dollars to get the hardware to even learn today. Right? If you're trying to get a Cisco certification, that's a lot of money, right? You've got to get access to the devices, maybe some tested network devices, and then you have to go through and study, and then you take an exam, and then that's just to get certification. There's been a lot of talk about having DevOps certifications or Chef certifications, and I think the industry, the people that are kind of building this up, press against that a little bit because they've seen what's happened with Cisco certifications in Microsoft. It's turned into an industry on its own. So you may see some people that have come out and say, hey, we're going to give you a DevOps certification, and I think there eventually will happen, and I think some of them will actually be worthwhile.
UW's doing one right now. UW is doing one.
UW is doing one right now. Yeah, I mean, if it came from UW, I would totally do it. But it's just before I was in the Army, I worked at in a dial-up ISP as a network tech in the mid '90s, and there were so many people that came out of the woodwork, and they're like the used car people that sit outside of the base, right? They're just like, hey, you want some of that DevOps? I'll totally give you a piece of paper. You pay me $700, and it'll give you a certification. Those are the ones you have to watch out for, right? Like, and they're definitely out there, right?
DevOps, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Get somebody at DevOps.
You joke, but we totally talk about that internally at Chef, on our internal chat rooms and stuff. It's like, yeah, I just want to rub some DevOps on it. It'll be great. Right? We'll make tons of money. We'll just rub some DevOps on it, right? So it's really important for you to understand what it actually means, so that when you go into a position that's talking about like you have DevOps experience, you may even be working or talking to somebody who will say, what DevOps tools experience do you have? And I think you can just kind of like, grin and nod and be like, well, there's really not a DevOps tool per se, but there are tools that you can use while working in a DevOps way, right?
Oh, chat room.
So, right? Chat room is a DevOps tool, right? This is the thing, right? Like email is a DevOps tool, right? Like, so,
Pick up the cell phone.
right? Exactly. So, that's kind of like all I really had kind of in my head to kind of talk about. I'm totally open to questions, or you guys want me to talk about something else, or?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Let's say that before this class, if we didn't have any like cloud computing knowledge or
Yeah.
chef knowledge, let's say apart from the knowledge that we got in this class, if somebody is to go and find a job as a DevOps or like a cloud admin or somewhere like that, what you expect from him, like, because we don't have job experience, let's
Sure.
say, and
Yeah.
what would you expect from that guy? Because we can talk about like what we did in this class. Apart from that, like on our own, we can do some of the stuff. But what you expect? Because we are
So-
like fresh in the market.
So what was your MOS?
My MOS?
Your MOS.
My MOS was a cook. I'm a
Okay.
Yeah.
So have you done any technology work before
Yes.
taking this class?
Yes.
Even on your own, you did some stuff as
Yes.
well? Okay. I would literally talk about that stuff as well. I got my first job in this space not based off of anything I'd actually done professionally, right? It was, I went to a meetup and I met some people. So you just have like different events, and I was like interested in Amazon Web Services. And I was like, let me go talk to a bunch of other people that know about Amazon Web Services, and it's kind of, and I went and talked to people, and I was like, yeah, so, I spent $7 a month and like, spun up my own servers and played around with it, and I did this, and it was really cool, and, I had some questions about that, and you have those conversations, and all of a sudden it's like, well, I totally know about this job, right? Like, it's definitely going to, especially if you don't have a professional background in systems administration, operations, software development, but you have these skills, it's definitely going to set you up for an entry-level position in the market. The thing to remember is it's not like an entry-level position to where it's like, I got to spend 5 years to get like into like maybe like a mid-level. Like, this space is growing so fast that an entry-level position today can be a senior position in 3 years, right? So it's definitely not like, when I got out in 2004, it was definitely, if I had gone in and said, I'm going to go be a Microsoft certified professional, like, I would go in and work in we were talking about this on the drive up. I'd go work in an MSP, so a managed service provider, and maybe sit in a NOC for 7 years, and then, maybe I'll do help desk for 3 years, and then I'll go work in a NOC, and then I'll like maybe at one day be like a mid-level manager after 10 years of experience. Like, I've seen people literally go from, I've had 1 year of system administration experience after college. I have 2.5 years of, I would call, automation, release management experience, and then all of a sudden they are the DevOps manager for a company, right? Like, that's what I'm saying, is the opportunity is there as long as everybody's coming in at that entry level, right? But the speed to go up is significantly faster than IT days of yore, right? Like, so I would say back to your point, when you're writing a resume and you're going out and writing cover letters, which, by the way, cover letters are like gold. Like, I know everybody talks about that stuff, but I've gotten every single one of my jobs based off of the story I told in my cover letter, because that's what actually got me the conversation. Because they're just going to scan through your CV, your resume, and look for keywords. And as long as you get the keywords in there, you'll pass, and then they'll go through and be like, well, what's the cover letter look like? And you'll be like, oh, well, this person actually like has a passion to do this thing. Right? But I would talk about, it doesn't have to be something you professionally did or did in the military. If you've done this on the side, right, that's totally valid, right, when you're going and looking for a position, because it's an open source community there's a lot of people who do all this stuff not for money, right? And so the time that you spend doing this outside of work is also valid in terms of saying, this is my experience and this is my exposure.
So I picked up Chef on my own on GitHub. That's how I started learning on my own, and then I attended some of your meetups, like maybe 3.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Well, it's interesting. Like, a common thread I've seen in particularly, the techs at Chef is so many of us have not a single technical certification. I have a liberal arts degree. If you want, I have a degree in Japanese language and literature, and I am a sales engineer right now. What the beautiful thing about, particularly Chef being an open source project is it's really easy to find something that you think is cool, contribute to it, and when you walk into a door for an interview, you can say, oh yeah, you can see me on the authors list for the Apache cookbook. In fact, I pulled that card out when I interviewed for Chef. I didn't do anything super amazing, you don't have to. Like, I extended the operating system support. But being able to point to that and say, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, here's what I have brought to the community. Having a face at meetups, hanging out in the IRC chats, you'll find a lot of the folks that are looking for DevOps people. I think I was joking while we were waiting for folks to show up that every tech company in Seattle either has a DevOps division or is scrambling to put one together.
Right. I think that's a good point that Nick brought up in terms of contributing to things. As you work through with Chef and you work with these other tools, you're going to find problems with them. There's going to be like a problem and it's not going to work. And you're going to be like, what the heck, am I doing this wrong? It may or may not be something that you're doing wrong. But if you can figure out that you're not doing something wrong or there's something wrong with the software, and even better than that, like fix whatever the thing is, no matter how small it is, like that's huge. Like the fact that you like fixed even the smallest little thing, even like contributed to documentation for some of these things, like that actually reflects pretty highly in terms of, you can be like, yeah, I use Chef, I know how it works. I haven't done it professionally. However, look at this stuff that I've done with the community project itself. And that's actually pretty beneficial as well. So if you have time, totally dig into it. And I will tell you, with any open source project, there is not a lack of things that need to be fixed. And some of them will be hard. Some of them you're going to feel like I'm never going to be able to figure this out. But if you kind of keep at it and just kind of work through it, and you'll not only be picking up skills that are really valuable in terms of troubleshooting and kind of figuring out how to resolve those problems. When you actually get something in there and contribute, that's gold, right? So, what else?
And contributions can be as simple as document changes.
Yep.
I used to do that all the time, like beginning when Chef was new, just go to the wiki, modify some things that I find incorrect and submit. That's the way to begin contributions. It is really small, but it is not zero, bigger than zero. And that shows your name. People find you, discover you, and you eventually meet them. People know more about you, you know more about them, you learn from each other. That's how community grows.
And I think the other thing too here is like, it's all about how you approach the situation too. It's really easy. So I was actually just talking about this morning when I was talking about. So I manage our engineers that go out to customers and teach them Chef and how to use Chef and everything, right? And so I manage people, and I was a team sergeant in the Army, right? And so and it's been a while since I've done that, but I had a situation with somebody, and I was just like, if I was back in the Army, this would be so much easier to resolve, right? Like, I'd just be like, just suck it up, like seriously, we're doing this. But you can't do that, right? It's only workforce, and it can be frustrating, right? You get into these conversations, and I found that killing people with kindness and just being like, look, I'm just here to help you, man. Like, what can I do to help you? And just being pretty open about hey, this is my first time actually submitting a contribution. I hope I'm doing this right. If I'm not, tell me what I should do different, right? That approach right there, if somebody gives you a bad, it's bah, whatever, then you don't want to work with that project anyway, right? Because that means that those people, whatever, they're probably
not the right community for you.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the other thing, right? And that plays right in the DevOps card, right? That trying to be collaborative, working as a team, pulling together across different organizations, and kind of kind of just being a little bit more friendly in general is, you'd be surprised how many really cranky people there are in the civilian workforce. That's for sure. There's a lot of cranky people.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, wouldn't you be if you spent 20 years doing your job and then all of a sudden somebody was like, yeah, that doesn't matter anymore. We're going to completely change your industry, right? So, yeah.
That's what Chef is doing.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, if you look at it from any of the established companies out there, the best way to survive in these large organizations is to find a way to eliminate your own job.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't eliminate your own job, somebody else will.
Right. And then when you eliminate your own job, then you get to be in charge of that thing that eliminated your job.
That's true.
So, because you know the most about it.
So it's kind of really weird way of thinking, but eliminate your own job is not about job security at all. That was like last century.
Yeah. That was the other thing we were talking about in the car on the way up is, people we've encountered in, our careers in tech that are so used to building it so that only they understand it. So no one can fire me. They're going to have to tangle through the 8,000 lines of code that I've written.
Gives you a lot of leverage.
Yeah,
But
but
you also got to think, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody who's ever been annoyed by that guy, right? is like, no, we're not doing that again, right? Like, we're not gonna let you become a bottleneck, right? You talked about the Phoenix project at all?
Not with the reference, but in concept Toyota production system and all that.
There's a book. It's called the Phoenix Project.
It is the goal book, right? You heard about the goal?
It's the goal, but it's like modernized for the IT industry, right? So you're not reading about boring manufacturing, right? You're reading about technology.
I just bought the Go.
Yeah. The Goal's a good book too.
Goal is a good book.
They talk about the goal in the Phoenix.
Goal is probably the best book you can ever read. It's a very boring book, but read
I
it.
didn't know that.
Yeah, it's small, not that big. It's a good story.
Yeah. And it definitely is a novel, right? Like the Phoenix Project is definitely a novel. It's very focused on the technology, and what you will find is a lot of personalities that you find in large enterprise IT organizations, right? And their transition in that story is exactly the transition that a lot of companies are going through right now. Like when I read that, I almost had PTSD. Like seriously, like I was like, I've lived this. This is horrible. Like I was having like flashbacks to like really bad situations that I've been put in with other companies, and it was just like, it was pretty impressive. But they described certain people, and one of the people they described is Brent, right? So Brent is this guy. Brent is the guy who is the only person who knows how anything works. And everyone has recognized that Brent is actually the fundamental problem with their organization. And so they want to get rid of the Brents. So when you sit there and box yourself into like, I'm the only person who knows how this works, you will find yourself out of a job, right? It's better to teach other people and work more collaborative, because then that's going to keep you, right? Keep you around. They'll be like, well, he's not a friend. He totally showed me everything. He told me how to do it, right? And it's definitely more powerful. So
I think, at a previous job, my boss bought me a copy and made me read it. And I think that night I was texting him, is like, is it wrong that I've started mentally filling in the names of all my coworkers? Like, no, it's probably not right.
And I'm one for not reading. I hate reading books. Like, I really hate reading books. I read The Goal, and it is a great book. It's very dry, to your point. I finished the Phoenix Project in about 2.5 days. So it's a really quick read. Again, I also kind of lived some of those experiences, so like it was pretty relatable for me. But it's definitely a decent book to read if you have the ability. What else? Anybody else have questions? I think I'm full of shit.
Now, is there any recommendation, say,
Full of shit.
Somebody just wanted to, possibly get a job at Chef,
Yeah.
or, besides going out and starting to contribute in the
Mhm.
community and, trying to find issues, having very limited and basic knowledge, what would your recommendations be?
To get a job at Chef, I would say Chef is a company. So Chef's a product company. That's another thing to think about too, right? We are a software product company, right? So what that means is we hire a lot of software developers to maintain the application itself and to do product releases in that nature. The stuff that I'm talking about, and my team, what they go out and do, are your typical people that work for other IT organizations, with the job market is significantly wider, right? And they've got 7-8 years of general release management, cloud experience, those types of things. And what they're doing is, I've already been on this journey with a couple of other customers. I used to work at GE and I helped them do something in a small project, or I worked at another company and did this, right? And so in my team specifically, it'd be significantly harder. If you wanted to work at Chef directly, my biggest advice would be learn how to write Ruby programs and be a software developer. And if you really are interested in that, totally, like, if you go look at the analysis of the most popular languages on GitHub, Ruby is up there with Java and JavaScript.
Number 2. JavaScript number 1. Ruby is right there.
Java's right around Ruby as well, but
Yep.
Java's way harder to write. So, Java's really boring. Ruby's way more fun to write, and it really depends. If you are more inclined to the operations, the systems, infrastructure operations side of the house, I would totally recommend focusing on that area, but continuing to learn on the development skills. Right, if you're a software developer, I mean, like realistically, the sky's kind of the limit. Like, you don't have to have a CS degree or anything in order to get a job. It really just comes down to what applications you've written, right, and what you've contributed to. So depending on what you want to do, like either avenue. But what I will say is, those software developers who can say, like, I've written an application, or I've contributed to an application, or I've done something, right, and I actually manage all the infrastructure that made it run as well, like, they're going to get employed pretty quickly. So
think of it in terms of a product company versus users of the product.
Mm-hmm.
So the people that he's specifically referring to as a professional services organizational lead is that he is helping other companies outside of Chef to use Chef.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what his role is, to provide.
Yeah, so I can tell you the ones I could talk about. So, like, let's see, Boeing. I'm trying to think about areas around here. So let's see, we've got Boeing, we've got, a lot of the ones around here.
I do, but I don't know which ones are the ones that are on our site. same problem.
Sure.
Do you want me to open up the website where you have customers listed?
T-Mobile, I think they're more Puppet, but I think they do a little bit of Chef with us.
Yeah.
CenturyLink is huge.
Yeah.
CenturyLink is actually
yeah.
really big with Chef. They just kind of went in pretty big with us. Yep. They actually opened up a huge CenturyLink Cloud Center in Bellevue. Yeah, over in Bellevue, where they're really they're trying to put a lot of effort and money behind growing their cloud infrastructure to kind of compete with, not really compete with Amazon, but kind of take a different part of their market, right? Essentially what's happening is Amazon owns everything, and they're so broad that a lot of these other telco companies are trying to create smaller clouds to take very specific niches that Amazon doesn't serve very well, right? Amazon's really great for a small startup or somebody whose complete infrastructure is on Amazon. What's really hard for them, and they don't do a really great job. I mean, I love Amazon, since I'm being recorded. I love Amazon, and they have made a lot of strides recently. However, it is significantly difficult for people to figure out the right architecture to bridge both gaps, right? Like, I want some on my data center, I want some on the cloud. How do I keep the data protected, right? I don't want some data bleeding out into a cloud instance, stuff. So you have things like, what is it?
Yeah, I've actually never seen this page, but they change often enough. But a cool thing about this is that you find there's a lot of pretty much any industry is going to have use for someone like you. Like, there's Facebook on here, as well as Scholastic Books. Actually, we have on our site a webinar from Scholastic talking about how they did AWS migration with Chef.
You also think about things like Nordstrom. Nordstrom is a very big. They use a lot of Chef. Nordstrom for sure.
Cheeseburger industries.
The other thing too is how many folks would say they prefer Microsoft products over other products? Yep, totally. If you guys know how to automate Microsoft products for the chef, money in the bag, right? Like, we have a really good, strong relationship with Microsoft. I would say out of all the tools, we have probably the closest relationship with them. And there are millions of Windows applications in the enterprise that are running on Windows systems because Microsoft was the king, right, for so long. There's a lot of applications that run on Windows. If you can automate, if you can bring DevOps type work and automating things on Windows systems, yeah, learn PowerShell, right? Those kinds of tools, like that's.
It's like terminal for Windows.
Yeah. Yeah.
They know terminal, not PowerShell,
Yeah,
because
that's fine.
because I'm a Unix person.
Right. Because yeah, that's fine.
No, I don't hate them,
No,
but
no.
yeah, I
So,
just
and and I think it's what I try to tell people that I go and help is if you've lived your entire life in a Windows world, you don't have to go learn Linux, right? Like you just have to change the way you think about how you manage those systems. And so so if you do have a heavy Windows background, you've managed Windows systems before, like go focus on the areas that you know and you kind of learn and go from there. Don't feel like you have to learn Linux and cloud stuff and Ruby and Chef and all these things just to apply for a job, right? Like, kind of look where you already have a background and some skills and kind of build, only learn things you really need to kind of move forward. So, I'm trying to think who else is around town for sure. We have a page on our website that's I don't know if Starbucks uses Chef or not. If they do, we can't talk about them.
Yeah.
There's a page on our website. We just changed our domain name, so it's
chef.io. That's what we are showing right now. In
Yeah,
fact,
That's what we got up there.
And so there's a page that's it's like finding jobs with Chef. And some of our customers, we actually have situations to where they're like, we're looking to hire people with chef skills, and we can't find them. So will you post our jobs on your website, right?
We're at
Where is it? I think it's job board. Job board. It might be dash. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I love that you're doing that. You're married?
Let's try that.
careers. Last careers.
Here we go. Yep, this is it.
Oh, okay.
Job board. If you scroll down, you'll see things like Cerner. They're based in Kansas City. Nordstrom, right? They've got some. You can click straight into their DevOps jobs, right? Let's see what is it? Operations engineering. Well, Disney. They're a Seattle company. They have an office in Seattle. And
Disney does?
Yeah.
They're a big all
They're
in.
a big shop.
They've
They're a big
taught
shop.
at a lot of our conferences.
their web services are primarily run from here, from Seattle area. All the websites,
Yeah.
the go.com, go.disney.com, disney.go.com, all those tools.
So Disney's another one I didn't think about. That's the only ones we have on the job board right now. But I'm trying to think of other Seattle, Tacoma, big names. And you know what's fascinated me is that the number of small to medium-sized companies that you've never even really heard of. Like companies are really bad at like looking for work or looking for people to hire. Like they're really bad. Like they just fire and forget on monster.com or something like that, right? And then what happens is, as per someone who has had to review resumes for technology professionals, what happens is you get millions of resumes for things that are like, why? Like, and it's even harder when you work for a company called Chef. I've gotten like cooks applying for jobs, right?
Yeah.
Like we had an account manager position, which is a very generic term, and like people were talking about their decades of experience managing like steak houses and stuff, and we're like, yeah, sorry. But I mean, like we would get that stuff anyways.
That's hilarious.
But I think if you just go through their job portals, right? You're just one of 1,000, right? Meetups, like
Is that
it's,
gold?
you know,
Where's some good meetups like in Seattle?
So there's an AWS meetup in Seattle. There
It's
is a
happening
chef.
tomorrow.
Yeah, there's one tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yep.
AWS?
One tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Yep.
What time?
if you
So go to meetup.com.
Meetup.
There's an app. There's
Yeah.
a meetup app.
Yeah, there is an app also.
Yeah.
Meetup
Yeah.
Seattle.
You did not know about the app? The meetup app?
Well, anyway.
I think I have it actually.
That's called Craigslist.
So just look at my name on meetup.
Be sure to tell you what this is meetup.com.
Right, exactly. Yeah, just make sure you get the right meetup.com.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
then you might be on Craigslist.
So here is a list of all the meetups I occasionally go to. I don't go to all of them, but occasionally I show up.
Oh, jeez. That's it?
But
That's it.
it is
You drive a little electric car over there every single day. Just turn it on.
So there's an AWS meetup tomorrow. We do chef meetups in our offices. We try to do them about once a month. We have not been really good about it. There's a DevOps meetup, which is a very generic, and that's over White Pages, which is also another company that's based in Seattle that uses Chef. There's other tools too, right, in this space. If you go onto meetup.com and search for DevOps,
No, it's it there.
any of those you can probably go and just meet. And because you don't have to be like an expert in that field, you can just go and be like, hey, I'm interested in this thing. Tell me more. Like, I don't even know how many people at a chef meetup that have literally come in and it's like, so what is chef, right?
Yeah.
You're thinking like, well, why did you even come to the meetup? You don't know what it is, right? But that's totally fine, right? Like, I'll talk to people, right? Well, there is food. We usually bring pizza and beer, so totally come to the chef meetups because it's pretty sweet. We have pizza and beer, right? We get into really live, heated conversations, so it's always fun.
And after 3 years, I went to this meetup just to find him and get him here. That was the whole
That was
purpose.
your first time at the
No,
chef meetup?
my second or third
Oh,
time.
okay.
Yeah, I rarely go to
moved
meetups.
Seattle in April,
Yeah.
so I have an excuse for having not come that many. I lived in Minneapolis before this, and it's a great town, and
Dinky town.
yeah, I definitely spent a lot of time in the meetups there. Same thing, right? Like meetups I went to, I hired two of our engineers out of the meetups, right? Just by, and you don't necessarily, like I said, you don't have to be like a super experienced pro to do that. At the core of it, right? DevOps is if you are friendly and willing to work on a team and you're very clear about, hey, this is my experience and I've had some training and I'm trying to know more and like, what can I do? Like, what is there to do? That's gonna win you all kinds of things, right?
Awesome.
So.
Which is in direct contrast with, hey, do this.
Right.
There is no such thing,
Right.
right? There is no such thing as somebody telling you, do this.
Yeah.
In fact, what you'll find is, or at least what I've found, is folks will come to you looking for, we're trying to figure out how to start with DevOps, and we're looking to build a team of people that are ready to write the book. So many people on just a clean slate. I've had coworkers from previous jobs have folks reach out to me that just want to have a conversation. Like, I had a guy from Bethesda, the company that does the Elder Scrolls games. He's like, we're not looking to hire just yet. We're just kind of trying to figure out, where to get started. And those kinds of conversations end up leading to new departments.
And the other thing too is I did talk to our recruiter that we have to get some ideas. One thing that she did say is that a lot of these larger companies like Nordstrom or Disney or whatever, they do actually have programs that they don't advertise, which are like Hire a Hero or very veteran focused. These larger corporations, when you have the veteran status on there, it actually does help a little bit, right? The smaller, medium-sized company, not so much, right? Because they're not really, sometimes if they're very heavily focused, it's something I think about. But these companies like Nordstrom and Disney, right? Like hiring of that actually impacts their bottom line, right? Like that actually is helpful to them because they get, right? Yeah. So that's another thing you can do is, if you're not really getting anywhere, you can ask somebody who works there and like, do you guys have a veteran hire program or even a veteran referral? Some of these companies, so she was telling me that these companies have a veteran referral bonus program. So like, you talk to somebody who just happens to work at someplace and be like, yeah, I'm getting out of the military and I've got these skills and I've learned this stuff and I've been trying to get in, but I'm not getting anything, whatever. Like, they might be able to refer you, and then you'll get past that automated thing and in the door, and you're good to go, right? So personal connections, will trump any amount of certifications you might have, which is unfortunate because it's totally not how that works in the military, right? Like it just happens to be. Well, it depends, right? It depends on where your personal connections are, right? So if you can keep your transfer orders in the same location, then you're pretty good. The moment you move to another base, it's like, oh, who do I know? Oh, that's right, we were stationed like 3.
But on top of the meetups, there's also, it occurs a number of conferences, and a lot of them can be, pricey to attend, but I'm actually thinking back to our summit conference where just in the lobby of the Sheraton Hotel in downtown Seattle, they had this big whiteboard, here are companies that are looking to hire DevOps engineers.
So I will say this.
Yeah.
In November next year, I think October, November next year, we already had our last one. We do these in Seattle every year, where we have our summit or community summits. We as Chef have 2 conferences. We have Chef Conference, which is more business focused. That's in San Francisco. It's where like the freaking fire jets go off and like stuff like that. Then we have the community summit, which is very much more low key. And to Nick's point, yeah, there is a fee to attend the conference, but there's a whiteboard at both these events. It's literally at the lobby that you don't have to like pay to get into the lobby. And it's where people will write out, like, we're looking to hire. And every single time within the first day, it's full of people, like, just writing their web address, where they're going, or whatever. Yeah. What else? Is this the type of stuff that you guys are interested in? Or
Absolutely.
Is it,
I guess I'm really trying to figure out where I fit. I have a passion for development. I really want to learn, get into actual software engineering. But right now, it's more ideas focused and bringing light to companies. So I've looked at companies like React, because they're very business focused with solutions for companies. I don't really see myself working in just an IT room, just managing something.
Sure.
Much more creative.
Software development, yeah.
And that's where I want to go, but I'm trying to find a way in without having, like I've started learning Ruby a little bit, not a lot. I started looking at doing apps, trying to learn how to do some like JavaScript. And,
my biggest recommendation to you, and what kind of actually moved me out of, like, I had a journal that I worked for news stations writing stories for them, right? And I started doing side projects. And what really got me into the technology space was I had a problem. I wanted to do something, and there wasn't an app for that, right? And I was like, you know what? I really think this thing should exist, and it should be a thing. And so then I thought about it. I thought, well, how would this work? And then I would break that down into smaller components, and until I finally got them described. And this is what you'll do in software development for any company, right? Is you'll take a big idea, you break it down into smaller ideas until you get down to the part of, like, I can log in, right? Like, that in itself is a software project, right? And you go through and you figure out how to just log into a website. It doesn't mean anything, it doesn't give you anything, but I have actively entered in a username and password, and I've logged in. Ta-da, right?
It's yours.
And you've done the thing. And then you add more things to it, right? And I would kind of go down that path. It's really intimidating when you have a really great idea or a big idea, and you don't know where to start, right? And you got to break it down into the smallest, mundane, little tiniest pieces, and work on that piece, put it together like Legos, right? Putting them all together. And there's plenty of free online tutorials to learn some things. But you learn all this stuff, and you're like, great, I know about integers, and I know about variables, that's sweet. If logic statements, woo, right? Like, that doesn't make an application. How do I do this and make a thing? And that's how all the software development projects in the world get created. It's not like I created a I started with a big idea and I tried to make that thing because they would all fail. I started with a big idea, I broke it down into the smallest pieces, and I built all the small pieces, and I put them together, and then I built larger pieces, and then I came up with a big whole application. Totally recommend going that. That worked for me. I actually spent, I think it was $100 on a Ruby on Rails tutorial from Michael Hartle.
So great. It's free now.
Yeah, the book's free. He has screencasts that you can buy for like $100. But the book is completely free, and it walks you through building an entire, like I built a Twitter clone. Like I built Twitter on Rails, right, Ruby Rails. And it was pretty sweet. Granted, like I couldn't perform under the load that Twitter has with my little wimpy application. But I learned a lot of things, right? I learned about testing. I learned about, the development tools, setting up my environment, things of that nature, which are all critical skills to have when you're trying to get a job somewhere else. Right?
And there's the two parts for that, right? There's the what you know and stuff like that. There's Code School, Code Academy, Rails for Zombies. There's like 1,000,001 things that'll give you sort of jumping off points as when you learn Chef. And then when it comes to stuff like the meetups, you find out real quick that Seattle is a real big small town.
Yep.
I've been at Chef a whopping 2.5 months now. And the smattering of things I've gone to, I've crossed paths with people in every company I've worked for since I've worked here. I have ended up just in Chef, finding 3 or 4 people that I've worked with in previous jobs. You find out real quick that going to a couple meetups gets your Rolodex up pretty high with folks that are all over the place.
The thing about it too, like here's a quick question. It's going to seem totally random. How many people read Reddit? Anybody know what Reddit is? Yeah? Go to Reddit. Did you know that Reddit is possibly like my go-to source for like learning new things about technology? I could go to like the sysadmin channel, or I go to the DevOps channel, or I go to the Ruby channel, right? Like there's a lot of really horror stories. There's all kinds of memes out there, right? But every now and then somebody will post something on there and be like, somebody will ask a question and it's like, I really want to learn X, right? Like, what can I do? And somebody will go through and post like, here, do this, here's all the links, do all these things, here's the order, there you go, and then you're done. So realize that almost half the class raised their hand so they went to Reddit. Like, these people will also go to Reddit, right? Like, that are going to hire you, right? The actual hiring managers also do this stuff too. So like, realize that, align with the people that you have interests in, and you will find a job. And that's kind of a lot of also what the meetup does, right? It brings people with common interests together, and then that's how you make the connections.
Yep.
Awesome. Did I go over time?
No, not at all.
All right.
Not at all. And I think some of the direct perspectives we get to hear directly from you, coming from the company that is behind Chef, is it's just awesome. We thank you for that.
Well,
Yes.
like I said, when I told you this at the meetup, so I'm ex-military. I will do anything and everything for people transitioning out of the military, right? Like, I know what it's like. It sucks. It sucks transitioning. It's not like paint any rosy pictures on it. It's hard, right? You've spent somewhere between 4 and 20 years doing things and building up experience, and it's really hard for people in the civilian community to understand what that means. And sometimes they won't ever know that. And I think that part of the full transition is understanding that someone who's never been in the military doesn't really fully appreciate the experience level that you bring. But your really good managers will recognize that when the really good managers will understand when they hear that you have military background or military experience. The ones that are like, oh, and then all of a sudden they want to kind of talk to you, it's because they know. Like my boss right now, right? He was like, every military person he's ever like hired or worked with has always been completely reliable, right? And reliability is the key, right, in the civilian sector, right? If you can have somebody who's reliable and is going to show up and do the work and like not complain about it and just like get the stuff done and like work well with others, like that puts you like way ahead of everybody else because there's all these people that have never had the really kind of shitty experiences that you go through while you're in the military, and like they don't fully appreciate it, right? And you just kind of accept that. You have to kind of accept that, and it's that can be a little stressful for some people to kind of understand that, like, you go into this thing and like, look, I've got all this experience, and it's really frustrating because you're like, you know, I'm talking to somebody and you haven't had to do anything real, right? Like when I had to get my first management position, like I had somebody from HR tell me, well, let me give you the intro to leadership. And I was like, dude, I was a team sergeant in Iraq, right? Like, I will tell you about managing a group of people, right? Like, granted, I had easier tools to work with, like I could throw people in jail. But I mean, like, you know, it's like, you know, but it's frustrating, right? And I don't think you'll ever get over that frustration. And the more you can kind of deal with that, I think it'll serve you better in the long run.
Okay. Yep.
So, yeah, this is cool.
Absolutely cool.
Hopefully you guys, I'll see you guys at some meetups.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
16th, right? December 16th?
Sure, the chef one?
Yep.
If it's on the website, that's when it's happening.
That's
Oh, that's our open house. The 16th is,
How nice.
We'll have so we have new offices in Seattle in Pioneer Square.
Is the one I visited?
Huh?
The same one I
Yeah, the
visited?
same one you visited, yep. And so we're having our grand opening open house type thing and a chef meetup. So
Nice.
there'll be tons of local, so because it's our open house, there'll be tons of companies in the Seattle area
Beautiful.
that work with us that we've invited to come, right? Like they're guests and everything.
So can we bring the whole class?
Sure. You guys want to come? Show for it. Go.
Yeah,
go for
let's
it.
go.
You gonna have beer at this one?
There's always beer. We have taps. We have taps. So we have taps in our break room. So like, yeah.
Where's the chef? Actually, I was talking to Jennifer Halliday, you know her? She came down and was talking about maybe looking into some internships as chef. To see what
Actually, I saw an email thread about that today. So yeah, and so I've actually talked about that a little bit. No, I don't. I read. I think it was from her.
I think it was too.
But there was
told me she was gonna do it.
there were some conversations about that. We've done a few in the past. Mainly, they've come from the U because,
You know?
quite frankly, they're cheaper internships. I mean, we are still a startup, right? Like we're not Microsoft, right? We don't have money falling out of our ears yet. Dang it! I know. Trust me. Dang it. But yeah, I mean, I think I know I've pushed for getting some more internships that aren't coming out of the universities.
I would love to take advantage of that. Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Especially
So if it helps, this is a formal school. I'm a registered school.
Yeah.
If that helps.
Huge for me.
Sure.
So but the state of Washington recognizes me as an institution of higher learning, if that helps. Yeah, I have a license.
Oh, wow, that's sweet.
I have a proper license.
That is awesome.
It's an institution.
He's certified.
Yeah.
So we're the
Certifiable.
U of N.
Yeah.
The U of N.
University of Militia.
Yeah. So that's cool. So how much longer do you guys have in this?
So this is like
Thursday's the last class day.
yeah.
And how long is the overall
So
course?
3 month long.
3 months.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
So Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
For how long? Many
And
hours?
Saturdays also we have like a hangout, so
Yeah.
we do online.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. 3 hours. 3 hours total or
Every day.
per day?
Per day 3 hours and goes on. So it's like
That's-
96 plus hours.
And that's, I mean, I will tell you that focused effort for 3 months of 9 hours a week, figure it times 4, 36 hours per week, or per month. Yeah, that's actually a lot more training than you get from a lot of places, right? Like to learn this stuff. So definitely capitalize on it. Definitely use it. Keep it up. Learn more on your own. Stick with it. Get to the meetups. Meet people. Tell them like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm kind of newish. I'm telling you, it's not going to take long, especially with these skills. Awesome. But definitely don't follow the traditional advice of like, wearing a suit.
Yeah, in a chef company you can go with like shorts and flip flops, and it's totally
I
okay.
would say if you're going for an interview at a company for a technology related position, ask the recruiter.
That's
or
right.
Whoever it is.
That's the best
and
approach.
say what it is. you might, most of the time you'll luck out. They'll be like, yeah, it's kind of business casual. So it's like slacks on a
That's
polo
what
or
I've been told
something.
every
It's-
time. I interviewed at Microsoft.
Yeah.
And
Oh, wait, wow, Microsoft. That's why I would assume it's a little bit.
For-
Microsoft is
for a vendor position.
broken flip-flops.
Yeah.
You're required to wear broken flip-flops.
No, they told me don't even bother with suit and tie.
Yep.
I got an email from
What
the
is Seattle?
hiring manager, and he was like, "Come in business casual, don't come in a suit and tie."
Yeah.
I was like, "Well, that's it
But
to me."
definitely ask. So like if you worked at Expeditors, which is a transportation company, if you didn't come in a suit and tie, you wouldn't even get in the front door, right? So like definitely ask those questions. That's another Seattle company that uses Chef.
What about transportation companies?
Like Expeditors,
What
yeah.
is- Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely.
Expeditors?
Expeditors is a company based in Seattle. They do.
Is that Expeditors International or something?
Yeah, I think so.
I think Colonel Sutherland is somehow related to that company. So we should find out more about. I don't know much about, but please if you can tell me. He was saying that they have a specific focus of hiring veterans. Expeditors is the name I remember, and Colonel is directly connected with the top notch in the organization.
It's all truck driving companies.
Yeah. Or moving
True.
companies.
It was really
Yeah,
true.
moving companies.
But like CDS, I was talking to those guys, and they have such a huge like base out there that people just don't think about transportation companies who
Yep.
they work for. So they have all these jobs they can't fill.
Well,
And
there-
there's IT jobs out there, especially with Chef or something like that.
I will say that the one thing about like for IT jobs within transportation companies is they don't generally have as large of a footprint, right? Because it doesn't take a lot of IT infrastructure around the transportation company.
It's a very
right?
small kind of
Right.
jack of all trades.
Right, exactly.
Guy
If
running
you-
around.
Right, you might have a team of 5 to 10 people that are managing like a moving company or something, or you like a local transportation company because they're all like affiliates, right? So I just recently had to do this since I moved, right? I had a local moving company and then United Truck Lines and then a local moving company, right? That did all this stuff. But I think you guys can do. I think you guys, given what I've heard about the technology you guys went through and the classes and the general demeanor of everybody here, I think like do a little bit of networking at the meetups and kind of just be pretty upfront about what you're trying to do, and you'll find people to help you get through that pass. Because just running through Monster.com or even their their application process, it's a crapshoot, right? Every job that I got that actually moved my career forward is because I met somebody. It's not because I knew somebody, it's because I met someone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Let's take a group picture outside and let's do that. Thank you.
Yep.
Pictures outside. Pictures and coffee break.
We're gonna take our picture.
Hey, Greg. Thank you, Greg. Thank you very much.
Stand in front of this.
Yeah.
That's correct.
We need to clear it up.
They're gonna block it, Deb.
And I totally understand that, and if Ann sees any part of this that has assumption in it,
They're really.
I will never hear the same thing because unfortunately.
Polish your Come on, guys. A picture. A quick picture with you.
I gotta stand in the back. I'm like totally tall.
I know. I got
Is that it?
Yeah, so.
Must be a good class. You guys all look so happy.
Closer, closer.
Unless she'll beat us if we
There we
go.
go. There we go. You good?
Yeah.
How many you want? The last one 100 again?
Yeah.
25.
And
There we go.
Sweet deal. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You send me a copy of
I
the
will.
picture? That'd be great.
Absolutely do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Basically, tag along here. I'm a sales engineer, so I've actually got a system administration background. And
He's my HOV Blaine +1.
Community from Bellevue.
Yeah.
It's a very terrible.
You commute from Bellevue to come down here? That's awesome.
In the sales
That's awesome.
So,
How you doing?
when people are trying to...
Michael, sorry, I came in late. Yeah, no problem. No problem. You missed all my excellent
dipping their toe in the water.
We have it recorded, so we'll post it internally.
Cool.
But thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I'm going to work with our folks and try to post them.
Get people on board.
Thanks.
Well, so.
And I really appreciate both of you coming here. That's so nice of you.
Yeah, let me know if you guys do another class.
We are doing it. We're doing it.
Let me know.
Yeah, so Chef is a standard curriculum, and it's in my curriculum, so we have
Let me
it.
know, and let me know what we can do to help too, right? Like we need,
Yep.
you need anything.
Yep. We already use your free account you give us, right? 5-node account.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
of us have it.
Yeah.
So we've been.
Yeah, no problem. But yeah, like even I don't. I'm trying to think of like some other things that we might be able to do to kind of help out.
But she doesn't have
There's a company called Launch Consulting. Have you heard of them?
Yep.
Yeah. So I know that they are very military focused.
Yes, they are.
And they've been trying to partner with us. The problem is they don't have a lot of chef trained people.
Yeah, they need chef trained people.
Right?
Yep. And we have them.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I think these are very good entry level chef people. They know how to deal with it.
yeah, and to my point, right? Like with this field, it's like
Everybody's new.
like 6 months, right?
Right.
Like you
6
come
months
in,
you already like.
you perform.
The more you put in, the more you grow quickly and rapidly, right?
It's definitely not like your traditional NCO where it takes, you have to have years, right? Years don't really mean anything in this space anymore. So.
Makes sense.
Cool. I'm going to give a project, and they'll be...
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. Yeah.
What was your MLS?
I signed up as a mechanic and I was employed as a scout.
Oh, cool. Awesome. What kind Cav Scout or? Yeah. Cool. I was in 4th Infantry, so I shared with 1st Cav, and so
So you guys have a lot of scout jobs.
we got lots of scout jokes because we were 4th Infantry and we had to share with 1st Cav, and so it was like it's like freaking Cav people with their daggone Stetsons.
And no horses.
Right? Like seriously, come on. Yeah, no, it's funny because so like I was on the PRD team, which so it's like long range single interception, but it's like boots on the ground, not mechanized. And so we would go out in the Blackhawks and they would drop us off, right? And so the scouts, we would always hang out with the scouts. Like when I were like in our same, like they were always coming in and out at the same time as us, right? So yeah, good times.
And we use...
Very cool. It does. That's what I meant, right?
All the chef recipes.
It sucks, but it's okay. It's character building.
Yeah, so I tell them I come from a government background back in India.
Yeah.
So that was my first career transition from government to the private sector.
Oh yeah.
And worked in 10 years at Microsoft,
Yep. That was it.
developing Windows and Office 365.
Yep.
And then I leave all that to do this my own business now, which is another transition. So it's my third career, if you will. And so I understand. I'm not a military transition person, but I do have transitioned myself. So it's similar. Not that it's a different game, but concept is same. You do something completely radically different.
And each of those, they'll have you link out to the GitHub page when you have the source.
But yeah, I think those core values that you actually pick up.
That is amazingly
that's
good.
That's actually the stuff that really means something more than the core values that you actually pick up from the military service, right? Like that's what I'm talking about in terms of like being able to work as a team, being able to like be dependable, those types of things. Those are the things that aren't on our resume that might actually get into the like those are the things that are
dive right in,
make you move forward pretty fast compared to other people, right? Because you're going to be working with a bunch of freaking people that like had everything handed to them. They didn't have to really struggle for anything, right? Like, and you're going to be like,
I don't know.
right? And you just smile, nod, and move on. Right?
Yeah.
You'll be fine. So, it'll be good.
Yep.
And
Cool.
yeah, and I think like
about that.
Yep.
really, you'd be surprised.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, no problem. So you're going to be at the meetup? You're trying to go? Okay.
The next day out to the field, came back the next morning.
When do you start to run late?
Hey, thank you again for
Yeah,
coming.
no problem. Yeah, so if you send me the picture,
I will.
try to work with our folks and
Take as much later
maybe
as
post
possible.
something.
That will be awesome. Yep. Appreciate that. And
And then let me know When is the next round start that you're going to try to do?
So January is the time frame. We are still discussing with the officers that you met the lady, right? Shelly.
Yeah.
So she'll decide as to what the next batch. 9,000 people are getting rid of.
Oh wow!
Yeah, every year. Yeah, so it's a huge number, and many of them. In fact, for this class, we had to reject 2 out of 3 to get in. So we had a list of 63 and we selected 21. And we have one person who's found a job already. And so
what decides whether the program continues? Is it placement? Is it
placement? And funding, both.
Funding. Yeah.
And the quality
I assume funding is easier.
Funding is easier. Funding is always easier. It's Obama, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I mean, I would assume it's easier to fund things. You're seeing the results of people getting placed, right?
Right.
It's the first time you've done this?
Yeah, first time in the nation.
Oh wow, cool.
Yes, it's first time ever that it is happening, and it's under the Camo to Commerce program. If you heard of it,
Yep.
Camo #2 Commerce. So I'm the first person doing it ever, and it's an honor to get that opportunity, and it's just amazing.
Man, it sounds like these guys are pretty eager, and
They're a smart group.
like I said, we get them to the meetups and get them.
I will push that.
I have a.
Not at all. And they're smart. They know they know the stuff. They're a little bit concerned about, because uncertainty associated with transition.
Yeah.
So that's what.
And you got to think too, right? Like, not all the transition programs that the military has are up to date, right? And so sometimes if it's anything like some of the folks that I know recently transitioned, they're still like outdated. This is what I was kind of talking about. Interviews and
Hey man, it's not a MacBook Pro, okay?
Yeah, I'm doing.
Some of these folks are like, they emphasize the wrong things, and they're not actually make an impact.
So I'm on the side coaching them how to talk, and the basics of interviewing, and all the tech industry, all of us do already.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not used to it, so I'm giving that separately on the side. Hey, thank you again for coming. Very much appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what?
It's very kind of you.
Like, so if we, so I'm trying to think of, for your, if the next class comes out, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we can do to kind of help you guys out in terms of.
I think we should. I'm open to anything that you have in mind. We'll work with it.
Want some help with any of the curriculum stuff at all, or you think
I have no idea. So my knowledge of Chef is straight from GitHub.
Sure.
That's how I.
I'm totally happy if you want to.
Let's just discuss. What do you have? So give it to me and see.
We have the open training materials.
So I'll consume that. So give me your consumables. I'll use that, some of it, because it'll be useful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I appreciate if you share that. I'll take it. I'll gladly use it.
No problem. Yep.
Gladly use it. I have it, but I have a virtual machine that I've given to everybody.
Yeah.
It has Chef installed, and so lots of documentation. My own internal site.
Yep.
It's hosted on Google site. There's a wiki, and so I have my own internal thing already developed. I've been doing this for 3 years.
Right. Okay.
And first time for military. And so they have tools. But I would love to receive what you have, because it's coming from the source. It will be much better than what I have.
Actually, if you go on the Get Chef site and you go to training, there is a link for open training materials, and you actually get all of our training materials for free.
I see.
So you can just download it. I think it's a PowerPoint deck.
I see.
And it's literally the materials that we teach in our training class. And so
I'll consume that.
It has exercises.
Do you have?
So what we do is we build an Apache website, and we walk through all of the more, like, we talk about roles, we talk about environments, we talk about all that stuff, right? And it's all kind of put together. And you can totally take it, use it. It's all Creative Commons licensed. You can do whatever you want with it. So it's there on the website. So if you need it,
I was not aware. I'll take a look. If you have a link, email me a link. I'll reply back.
There's even some corresponding videos now up on Learn Chef. They're called
And Nathan Harvey's. Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen those.
And so it's those kind of dive into some of the specifics, but it's a companion to that.
Yeah, they do.
So
they have different.
I'll
do it again?
Yes. You should.
Email me.
I will do that.
Totally come back.
Thank you.
Yeah, no
I
problem.
appreciate that, and it is really nice of you to come.
Yeah, no problem.
I'll send you a formal thank you email also.
All right, cool. All right, we're gonna take it. We're gonna get it back up. I'm gonna go see my
Thank
wife.
you.
All right, thanks for coming down. Good to meet you.
Hey, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
There's a lot of good tips.
hopefully I'll see some of y'all. You know what's funny about that? I don't have a business card because not only has my title changed, our website changed, and like everything.
And domain also changed.
Yeah, I just got that.
I just like stopped like giving out business cards.
Yeah, and
It's like it's just showing my name.
people do LinkedIn instead. Yeah, LinkedIn's.
But you could. But I'm the only. I'm like one of the only Michaels in Chefs.
I'll give you his information.
Sure. Yeah.
I'll give it to everybody.
Sorry.
We'll link up.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Yeah, no problem. See some of y'all at the meetup.
You'll see us.
Yeah, we'll bring the whole class. Ideally.
You're going to be at AWS, so you need to be up there.
Right on.
Yeah, 16th, right? 16th.
Take it easy, guys. Yeah, we'll see you up in the office.
Take care.
See you guys.
Thank you guys. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for coming out.
No problem. Take care, guys.
A position,
If you need to go to the restroom, just in case,
I'm good. You good? Yeah, we're good.
yeah, it's a long drive. So, yeah.
Left, guys.
Left? Yep. Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good night.
You guys starting to code?
Loki's gonna be there.
Yeah, no, seriously, it's like a boot camp, but it's all online.
Really cool.
And you'll teach your Ruby on Ruby on Rails, Ruby
Yeah,
on
but
Rails.
if you have like your community degree, like I think you'll probably start with the third module.
Are you serious?